The main reason that I wanted to do today's video was ever since I moved into this house a couple of years ago, our garage doesn't have any room to put a workbench. In the previous house that we were in 3 years ago, it had, a built-in workstation in the garage. And here I can go buy a bench, but I literally have nowhere to put it because we like to park in our garages. So one thing that's kind of been a real big struggle for me ever since I moved in here is, number one, finding my tools, because they're just in bins floating around. I got hammers and punches, and I always lose my clevis pins for installing the front takedown pin on AR-15s. And then the second problem I had was figuring out a bench situation. So I really needed a bench that I can collapse and take down and tuck away, like in that closet back there, and then bring it out when I actually want to build something, because this room is running out of space and there's no room in my garage. So I kind of figured I would show you a little build setup that I just created the other day. It's actually right here, totally collapsible, but it's perfect for those who need a good space to build their AR-15. The other thing we're going to be talking about is this tool set. Now, I've been posting this on our Facebook page, and I've been posting it on my deals page. I will throw a link below for my deals page. Usually about once a week, I go through and I try to find, at least right now, ammo in stock. And then I try to find gun deals and stuff like that. And saw this on the interwebs, and I was like, wow, that'd be perfect, because it literally comes with every single tool you need to build an AR-15, except for a vise. But what I really liked about it was not only does it come with every single tool, it's all in this case. And I told you guys that I was gonna order one of these, and I did. I did pay for this with my own money, and I actually paid full price, so there you go. We are gonna take a deep dive into this here in a minute, and we're gonna go over all the little tools and what they do and why they're important. But first, let's talk about how we set up this bench right here. This is a router table that I'd already purchased about a year ago. So this is a collapsible Husky table. I'll actually throw links below for everything that we're talking about in today's video. I didn't really want to go out and buy another table. I'm sure I could have bought another table to make this whole process a little bit easier, but this is what I had and this is what I wanted to work with. What I like about this is it's a router table, so I can use it to do some routing on some stuff if I need to. But the one thing I like about it is it's 100% collapsible. So these come off, and then these can store underneath the table, just like that. And so all four legs go in there, and it tucks easily behind a shelf or a couch or in a closet somewhere. So this is what I'm working with. And so what I wanted to do was mount a vise to this, a secure vise, and don't really have any holes here to work with. And I do have some T-slots here. So here's what I did. I bought these Bessie clamps for T-slots. I will throw a link to these, which specific ones that I picked up. And what these do is they slide into your T-slots here, and then they will clamp down onto something if you want it to. And then what I did was I took a piece of plywood, I took some lag bolts here and some wing nuts, and I secured this vise down to this piece of wood. I actually used a Forstner bit to kind of hollow out the bottom side. One thing I didn't realize was Forstner bits don't work very well on plywood. I've never tried them on plywood, but it kind of gets everything splintering, so it kind of makes a mess. One thing I will have to do though is on a couple of these wing nuts here, I think it's this one back here, so right there, I'm gonna have to kind of grind off the very outside edges of these wing nuts because it won't tighten all the way, but that's not a big deal. I can take care of that later. So what I do is I cut it down a little bit. I might cut this down a little bit more narrow, and then I can pull these clamps up closer. But essentially what you do is you take these clamps, you push them forward, and then you just tighten these down. There's other types of clamps you can get as well. I was actually thinking about cutting this a little bit more narrow. Then I could scoot this vise back a little bit further, and I could put a clamp in the back, put a clamp in the front. But I'll get to that later. But as of right now, this thing is pretty darn stable. The reason you want it to be kind of stable is when you're building AR-15s, especially if you're putting barrels on, you're gonna have to torque things down to spec. All right guys, so let's go over this guy real quick. Like I mentioned earlier, this thing comes with absolutely everything you need to build an AR-15 except for a vise. That's the only other part you need. When I first started this channel, there wasn't a toolkit like this available. You just kind of had to go out and buy stuff. And over the years, I've kind of worn out all the tools that I bought. Like I've had hammers and punches, just all kinds of random stuff. And I never really had the exact correct tools. I've just kind of been winging it. And so I wanted to solve a couple problems with this kit. Number one, have all of my tools in one location that is neatly organized. And number two, I wanted to have the correct tools for everything. So let's get into this. I'm gonna go over all the different parts, how they work, why they're important. Then we'll kind of go over what my initial first impressions are and whether or not I feel like this kit was worth the money or not. So there's two sides, one up here and one right here. We'll start right here. This right here is probably one of the coolest tools that I've ever seen. This is their armorer's wrench. Now this thing is pretty darn awesome. Let me show you why. So this was my previous armorer's wrench. This one's the DPMS. I've been using this since day one, actually since before I started the YouTube channel. You know, it has some of the same types of tools like the wrench here for your barrel. It has the castle nut tightener right here, which I've honestly kind of worn it out. And you know, it has a few other things. It has a place here to put a torque wrench, all that crazy stuff. But you know, this tool's been all right, but this is on a whole nother level. So number one, not only do you have your barrel wrench, you have 3 prongs to tighten your castle nut. On this one, it only had one little notch and it's getting worn out because it would often slip on me. Whereas this one, it ain't gonna slip. It's got 3 prongs right there. Third thing that it has is it has a spot for a torque wrench, which happens to be included in this kit is a torque wrench. And to be honest, I've never had a torque wrench. Usually it's a very much analog torque wrench. Usually the way I would install barrels is I would just put it on, tighten it down, and then I would go see like a gunsmith, or I go to my local FFL and he would torque it down to spec for me. So the cool thing is if you're tightening down your barrel here, or if you're tightening down your castle nut, you put your torque wrench in this slot. Now you can torque it down to spec however you see fit. Now the last thing that it does is it's also a hammer, which I thought was really cool. You have 3 different types of tips here. You have a brass, you have a hard plastic, and then you have a rubberized tip. You also have replacement tips right here, and I believe if you wear all these out, you can just order more from Real Avid. But in all honesty, it's gonna take you quite a while to wear out these tips that are included with it, because my previous hammer was just a standard little Wheeler hammer and punch. I had a brass side and a nylon side, and I've been using it since 2016, and we built like 14 or 15 rifles. I've used it on multiple handgun builds. That hammer's just now getting worn out, so the fact that you get a whole second set, this is gonna last you quite a while. So the way this works is you can just unscrew these, and then right here, there's a little spot there to screw it in. Now that's cool. So now you can use the brass and you have a really sturdy hammer. And the thing I like about it too is it has a lot of weight behind it. With my other hammer, it didn't have that much weight behind it. They are threaded in here. So the cool thing about them being threaded instead of just stuck in there is as you're hammering, these aren't just gonna fall out. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now the next thing that it came with that I really like is this vise block right here. And we'll kind of go over some footage of it in action here in a minute. I already had a bench block right here. It was just one of those basic ones. And when you put it on, if you didn't have your mag release already installed, and it would just wobble all over the place. So, you know, it get kind of annoying, especially when you're trying to torque things down. So, you know, it worked for its purpose, but this thing's on another level. It has a spreader right here that locks it in. So when you put it on, you simply turn it. And once it's tight, it's not coming off. So then you clamp that in your vise and this thing is not going anywhere. And you can tighten it down even more if you like. Then to loosen it, you just simply turn this, and then it comes out like that and goes right back into your case. You also get a front sight adjuster. Not that that's super important, you know, that this comes with one, because I have a ton of them. What is super important is it has its own little home and everything is clearly labeled. So I feel like I've lost more of these than I've owned. So that's good that I have a place where it can actually go. You also have a safety flag here. And then you have this bad boy right here. This is basically a way better version of the clevis pin method. Let me show you how this guy works. So as you can see, this thing is actually a little bit better than the clevis pen. Again, I've lost 3 or 4 of those clevis pens, and sometimes when you're in a pinch, there's been many times where I was going to start a build, couldn't find it, had to run to the hardware store to buy a clevis pen. Hopefully they had them in stock, then come back home and do the video. So it's just nice to have one in its own little place whenever you need it. The other cool tool is this guy. It's called a pivot lock, and this goes to your rear takedown pin when your upper and lower are still kind of connected. Let me show you real fast. So essentially what this does is it locks in right up here, then it comes down to right here. You just line that up and you put your pivot pin through. Then when it's on the vise block, it can stand up and you can just get a good clean going through the barrel and all that stuff. You don't got to worry about this flopping around. I thought that was just a really ingenious little guy. I mean, sometimes it's just those little things that matter. You know, kind of off topic. Someone asked me the other day about a good idea to start a business or creating a product to sell. A person came up with this interesting idea, and I simply asked them a question. Does it solve a problem that people have? And if it doesn't, you're wasting your time, because if you go and create a product, you're gonna lose all your money after you spend it on manufacturing. It's just not gonna work. This is an example of a really ingenious product that solves a big problem that people have. Same thing with this pivot pin tool, same thing with this hammer, same thing with this bench block. Solving problems is the ultimate way that people become millionaires and billionaires. The same thing with Jeff Bezos from Amazon. Sorry, a little bit of a business rant. The other cool thing that this comes with is this bench block right here. I'm actually gonna clear everything off just so we can look at this, because so many things you can do with this. A couple interesting things that I noticed. Number one, you have a place to put your charging handle. I know that seems odd, but it stays there. It's not going anywhere. And then you can drive out these pins that hold the latch into place. And so if you want to change your latch, you now have a stable surface to drive that pin out. We'll cover this tool in a little bit, but I need to use it real fast to take this bolt carrier group apart so I can show you something. So you know how when you're cleaning your AR-15, you know, a lot of times you're taking your bolt apart and you're just setting it somewhere, and you're trying to find somewhere, you know, kind of dry. You're trying to find like a cloth or something to set it on. Well, this one kind of solves that problem. Number one, you have a place, I'll talk about this little fella in a second. You have a place to put your bolt. Holds it right there, not going anywhere. You can also put your bolt right there. And when your bolt's right here, you can actually hold this down and you can change out your gas rings if they need to be replaced. This one right here actually holds it into place. Will add pressure to this little pin, right, to this ejector right here. And you can actually, when you put pressure on it, you can drive the pin out if you need to change your ejector. So for example, all you do, I'm gonna get you close up here, is you just tighten this little fella down. You'll see right here, it's coming in to push on that ejector, and it puts pressure on it. Then right here, you can take one of the pins that it comes with and drive it out, which we'll talk more about the pins here in a second. Very fascinating indeed, love that. Another cool thing about this jig is it holds your lower receiver and it holds it in a flat manner, meaning like it's not gonna wobble back and forth. It's on a stable surface, so when you're driving pins, you're not gonna break stuff, scratch stuff up. That's so legit. So the other cool thing that it'll do is you can take your lower receiver, and let's just say you've already installed your front takedown pin. You can now stick it into your vise, you can stick it into the bench block like this, and then you can simply push your pin in and it'll lock it into place. Then you put your tape on the side to prevent it from getting scratched up, but now you can drive in that pin for your bolt catch without worrying about slipping. It will literally hold it up. You just gotta make sure that you have that pin in and it will lock it down solid. I've already tried it. So the other cool thing this will do is with your upper receiver, I don't have a stripped upper to show you, but basically you set this down like this, okay? And now you can push this in, and when that's depressed, you can drive this pin out right here, and you can take out and change your forward assist if something goes wrong with it. Super nice. Another cool thing that this will do is you'll notice it says front sight right here. And that is so you can work on your A2 front sights. And last but definitely not least, on the back side of this, you'll notice that this is all magnetic. So whenever your pins fall through, they will stick to this. But look at this. This is where you can keep all your little pins and detents while you're doing your build. That way, you know, you don't have them rolling off the table. You can simply just place them back here before you start your build, and you're good. It'll just click into place. I thought that was legitimately awesome. So this solves a ton of problems. It doesn't stop there. There's so many other cool parts we got to look at. Okay, so we've got that side of this kit done. Now let's move to the other side. And as I mentioned, you have your torque wrench. I don't think I need to explain that any further. Now, one cool thing that this comes with that I think is absolutely awesome is this guy. So a couple of years ago, Geisley came out with one of these things and it was called a reaction rod. And the reaction rods cost $180, almost as much as this entire kit costs. I'm not even kidding. And I never bought one because I was like, man, that's so expensive. This is for installing barrels. The way that this works is you clamp this into your vise. This comes all the way forward and locks into the lugs in your barrel. And then this piece on the back comes out and it goes right here. And that simply holds everything in place so it doesn't slide around. You clamp that into the vise, then you get all the torque and leverage you need to torque that barrel down to specifications. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so now this piece right here is used to remove this style of handguard. And essentially the way it works, this piece right here kind of goes into your magwell, but you pull that up and this comes back, and then that allows that to separate, and now you can get access to everything in your barrel. So the other cool thing is you get every single punch that you need to put an AR-15 together. And even more cool, this little fella right here is just another one of those simple problems that need to be solved. This will hold your roll pins as you hammer them in. You ever tried holding them with your fingers or vise or a pair of needle nose? This will hold your roll pins. You hold the pin in place and you simply just, tap it in, and you don't gotta worry about smashing your thumbs, or you don't gotta worry about them going flying. So very, very interesting. And the cool thing is, if you look right here, it actually locks into place, so you don't gotta hold pressure on it. So you get your different size punches. You got a couple of roll pin punches in there. Then you got a pin starter right here, so your roll pin would go into there and you can get it started. Then you get different size punches and roll pins, which I think is awesome. Then you have a pick set, and this pick set is plastic. It's quite hard, but it is a plastic. You can use this, for example, when you're taking apart your bolt carrier group to get that first pin out, just like this, and then things like that. So there's all kinds of uses for pick sets. Okay, I got one more thing to show you before we talk about our final thoughts on this kit. So this right here is called the Real Avid Carbon Boss. I bought this as well when I bought the full kit over there. I've been using the Otis tools to clean my AR-15s, but the reason I wanted this was it's also compact and I can just throw it in my bag, in my range bag if I need to. But it literally comes with every single piece you need to clean an AR-15. Let me show you. Now, mainly it's all for your bolt carrier group. So this isn't going to include, your rip cords and all that stuff. If you want to see that stuff, I'll put a link in the description for another video I made on cleaning AR-15s. But essentially, it comes with this little fella right here. It pops out like a pocket knife. It gets underneath, gets in that pin, pulls that out, just so easy. In order to get this little guy back in, you push this in, similar to a pocket knife. This little fella right here is a punch. So you can use this little punch right here to actually push your pins out just like that. Because sometimes, especially on new builds, these pins can be really tight. So that's nice. You can also use this punch part here. The cool thing is you can put take your bolt here, put it on here, push it up next to here, and then this piece of metal, that little flat piece of metal that's right here, will actually scrape all the carbon off of that hard to get spot. Now that's a really hard spot to get. You just roll it and you can already see it took some carbon off right there. The other cool thing you can do is it does have a brush that will lock out, so you can use it. It's got copper and plastic wire in there. But the cool thing about it is you can use it kind of like this, or it also locks out just like a pocket knife. You can bring it down here. This is called the shoulder of your bolt. And what you could do is you set the shoulder there, you could press this brush down, and then you could just spin this, and those brushes will clean the shoulder of your bolt right there. Other cool parts is right here in the center. You got this wire here. You take this tail of your bolt and you can scrape it off. Pretty nice. Then you have this guy that folds out just like a pocket knife. And this one has a bunch of stuff on it. And it's all labeled for you. So right there, you can see it says cam pin. You can just take your cam pin, you know, you can get it in there. That's really nice. The other cool thing is right here, you can get all your lugs. So you can do each individual lug however you see fit. So you can also do the firing pin like this. So you got the firing pin, you just pull that through, and then on the end of it here where it gets smaller, you got another spot. And then right here, you'll see a hole. You can drop this down like this, and then you can just turn it like this, okay? And what that'll do is that'll clean this face of it right here. Then you can also take this piece right here and you can go inside of here and you can clean out carbon in there as well. So really awesome little tool. You know, I'll include a link to that and stuff. For those of you that are new to this channel, I know a lot of you, the subscribers, know this. This is what I use for cleaning my guns. Non-toxic system. It's 2 steps, cleaner and lube separately. I like it because it's non-toxic, has 0 odor to it, and I don't get any headaches. I think I have a 5 or 10% off code for it. So I'll throw a link in the list in regards to this also, but there's a few other things you need to know about this whole kit before we finish up this video. Back up top. All right, cool people. So yeah, that's the whole thing in all its glory. You know, a couple of things that we do need to talk about though before we finish up today's video is number one, you know, I like to talk about any pros and cons whenever I review a product, whether I buy it or whether it's sent to me by a company. And number two, I like to cover knowing what I know now, is it something that I would buy again with my own money? Now, before we get to that, I just want to say the one thing that I love most about this whole setup here is it's completely portable. Because the table collapses, because all the tools are in one box, and because the vise is attached to a piece of board, I can literally load all this in my truck very quickly. And then if I'm out at the range, if I'm going to do an entire range day where I'm testing a ton of guns and something might go wrong, I have a whole little workstation where I can just, you know, fix stuff and things like that. Not that I will use it like that, but it could be used that way. It's very mobile, it's very portable, and you can tuck it behind furniture, which is perfect for situations where you don't have any space in your garage, or maybe you have limited space in your home, like I do in here. I don't want a permanent bench setup. So if you live in an apartment or something like that, it's perfect. Now, in regards to the pros and the cons, I have tried very, very hard to find cons about this kit. And the only con that I can really find is I wish that they would have came with a couple of metal picks. I do appreciate the plastic picks because they're non-marring, but just in case they break, I would like to have some metal picks included in it. Aside from that, I can't find any other cons about this thing. It's all pros. Talking about would I buy it knowing what I know now, this kit can range anywhere from $200 to $249 depending on if it's on sale or, you know, the time of year that you pick it up. And I'll have links, but like I mentioned earlier, the fact that this thing even has something that's similar to the Geisley reaction rod, and you're only going to pay about at max $70 more than that, and you get all of this, I think that's absolutely amazing. You know, when I first started building AR-15s, my first AR-15 was, I wasn't planning on starting a YouTube channel when I built it. I started the YouTube channel like a few months after the fact, but you know, whenever you go in to build your first AR-15, you're like, I'm just gonna build one, and that's it. And then it becomes an addiction and you keep building them. And over the years, you know, when I first started, I didn't have the money to go out and buy something like this. And so if you're that kind of person where you're like, man, I don't really have the money to buy it, you can buy all these tools that are in here individually. So I will create a whole list with links and stuff where you can pick up each individual part. That way, if you're like, man, I can't buy that full kit, but I love that pivot pin tool, I wanna go buy that. Or I love that bench block, I wanna go buy that. Or you're like, man, I love that armor's wrench that works as a hammer, I wanna go buy that. So, you know, you don't have to buy everything. The only other things you need to build an AR-15 aside from this kit is the vise that we talked about earlier. And some of this Aeroshell 33, you don't need this, but I use this on barrels on the outside of the chamber. I use it on buffer tubes and things like that to keep everything from seizing up. This stuff's only a few dollars, and this is the only can that I've ever bought. You know, I've had this can going on 4 or 5 years, and that's all I've used. So this thing will last you forever unless you lose it. But overall, I give this thing 100% win. I think it's worth every single penny that it's included with. But I got a question for you. If there's any other problems that you guys face with building guns and things like that, let me know down in the comments. Now, I understand that people are gonna say, well, yeah, finding parts right now, you know, lower parts kits and AR-15s and Glocks and Glock parts kits, everything is really difficult to find no matter where you go. That's why I always have a deals page. I I will put a link in the description where that is. That way you can check that periodically. I usually upload deals every single week, usually on Wednesday, Thursday, but sometimes I forget and do it on a Friday. But I like to put a lot of restocks as well as deals on that page. So just follow that link and you can keep up with that. But if you have any other problems aside from not being able to find stuff in stock, let me know and I'll see if I can't make a video to try to solve it for you. Or maybe it's a problem that I didn't even know existed. But if you like this video, hit the little like button. I think it's like right here. If you didn't like the video, hit the dislike button twice, just to make sure that you drive your point home. But until next time, guys, I love you. You guys stay sexy.